One of the most dangerous moments for a business owner isn't the worst of times. It's when they're in the best of times. That peak month when you're hitting all-time highs can often be the most dangerous spot that a business owner finds him or herself in. Today, I'm going to show you 4 tests to run to see, can I afford the next thing that I'm trying to buy? And then a few things to do to protect yourself from overextending yourself during good times. So, why am I saying that that peak month is often one of the most dangerous? The reason is this. During that peak month, we always assume that things are going to continue to go up. And when we do that, we let our guard down and we think we can afford this, we can pay for that, and we make compromises that can hurt us when things start to go back to norm. And that is when we feel the pain, but the pain came because of the action we took during those peak periods. I want to walk you through an example so you kind of see what I mean with this. So we're going to stay a baseline of $100,000 of revenue. We're going to have a 40% gross margin, so $40,000 gross margin. We have $30,000 in overhead. That leaves us with $10,000 in profit or a 10% profit margin. So let's say we get a 20% drop in revenue. We've now dropped revenue to $80,000. Overhead is going to remain the same because overhead is not connected to that revenue drop. Gross margins are connected to revenue, so they're going to go down proportionally, and we end up with $32,000 in gross margins. Hopefully, you can very quickly see that problems are about to happen because that $10,000 or 10% profit margin has gone down to $2,000 or a 2.5% profit margin. This is razor thin margins. And what I want to highlight here, 20% drop in revenue is a 75% reduction in profit in this scenario. And that carries over to cash. And cash is where you actually truly feel it. And you feel it when, oh, I can't make payroll, or oh, a customer paid late, and so now I'm in need of cash. It's taxes whenever you've not planned for that appropriately. We feel the pain of profit, but then we feel the pain of cash, which is more acute of a pain. Then we feel the pain of a reduction in options. When we have tight cash, we have tight profits, we lose our optionality. Owners make decisions during the good times that lock them into things that when things dip, when cash goes down, when profits go down, when revenue goes down, they lose their optionality and their ability to solve that problem long term. Our financing options shrink, meaning the bank won't give us or loan us as much money. Our operating options shrink. We have to make hard decisions about leases that we have locked in, debt that we have, payroll that we have. Those are fixed and we can't change them when things dip. So we find ourselves being forced to cut marketing, sales, other things that could help us in the future. We end up having to make decisions that are going to hurt us in the long term to survive in the short term. And then we lose our strategic options. And we, again, have a narrower set of outcomes. And in those narrow set of outcomes, we can make decisions that are going to hurt us. We aren't going to reinvest in the systems. We aren't going to reinvest in the software. We're going to stay and do what we need to do to stay alive, which has to happen at certain times. But they're often decisions that are going to hurt us 6, 12, 24 months down the road. So I want to run 4 tests before we take on new expenses, even when we're in the best of times. One of those is we want to look at our baseline cycles. We want to look over a 24 to 36 month period. What is the best and what is the worst period? And we want to model things based off of that worst period. The other one, we want to look at revenue drops. Look at our historic revenue drops, understand that, model out that revenue drop. So if that's a 20%, model out 20%. If we have a customer that's 40+% of our business, we want to model out what would it look like to lose that customer. We want to look for those risk factors in revenue, and we want to model out the biggest drops that we see based off of those risk factors. We want to look what happens if our margins compress. If we have a big supplier issue and all of a sudden we have margin pressure, or we have fuel expenses that gone way up and that's part of our margins, we want to understand what are the biggest threats to that margin and what is the biggest compression going to look like in a short period of time, and how does the business handle those compressions. Then the fourth test, what is the cash gap if a customer doesn't pay or if there's a slowdown in some sort in the flow of money in the business. None of these are the perfect test. And sometimes we're going to get bad answers or answers that scare us a little bit. And that doesn't always mean that we need to act. But we need to understand the results of these things, because by understanding the results of these things, we're going to be more prepared to deal with issues as they arise. We don't want to get ourselves in a spot where we're having to make those hard decisions. So, how do we avoid those hard decisions? I have a few things here that we can do to avoid those hard decisions. Number one is we want to build a downside budget. This is an extension of what we've just done here, but we want to understand if a downturn happens or if the negative things happens, what should our budget look like in that case? That makes you not have to make the hard decision in the moment because you've pre-made that decision and you've already thought about it. Another one is we want to reclassify our expenses into fixed expenses and optional expenses. We want to understand upfront what our fixed expenses are. Often expenses all go into a bucket and we think this is what the expenses are. Understanding when you're making a fixed expense increase and the impact that that can have, we can be more willing to make optional increases or non-commitment increases, meaning you can stop it 1 month to the next, versus we should probably pause and think a little bit more if we're getting into a contract, we're getting into a fixed expense that's going to be harder to get rid of. Third, we want to set a fixed cost rule, meaning we're not going to take on any fixed expenses unless it meets the rule that we've set for that type of fixed expense. So if it's a revenue threshold, if it's a margin threshold, if it's a cash threshold, we want to set rules and put things in place that help keep us accountable to not make spending decisions without thinking deeply about it. Fourth, we want to hold real cash reserves on standby. I've talked about this in the past, so I'll link to an article where I talk about the cash reserve formula. I think it's really important for you as a business owner and as a business to understand how much cash you should keep on hand to reduce the amount of risk that you have during a downturn. And then last, build flexibility into your commitments when you can. This is not always possible and it's not always going to be easy, but look at your commitments. Make sure that you're not having all the renewal dates at one time. Spread out renewal dates unless there's a reason to group them together. So in a reason where you have leases that are coming up, maybe group them to be very intentional about how you use your office space. But then for insurance, for other big expenses, for other debt, spread that out as much as you can so that it hits throughout the year. You don't have big cash hits all at one time. And then look for shorter or longer terms where it makes sense. Longer terms on things that you know you're always going to need, shorter terms on things that you need flexibility in, and negotiate those things in advance. We often don't think about that in the moment, but this is a good approach. I want to actually add one more thing as a bonus. And this is something I've seen happen with a specific subset of business owners, not all business owners. A lot of business owners are really frugal. They don't like to spend money. But for a specific subset, I want to make sure that we don't finance our lifestyle with the peak revenue months. Too often, I've seen business owners come in at those peak revenue months and they start upping their spending. So then when things go down, they not only have business stress, but they have personal stress. They have to deny their family things. They have to sell some stuff off, make changes in their personal life. And that just adds to the stress that the business is feeling. Treat peak months and peak years as a gift and not a guarantee. Part of what we do at BisonCFO is we help business owners understand their numbers better, which allows them to extract more than they might otherwise while protecting against that peak spend syndrome. If we can help you do that, we'd love to chat. But we want to make sure that we're locking in our personal lifestyle for that worst case scenario so that no matter what's happening in the business, we can continue on personally and not feel that. Because when we're feeling that personal stress and the business stress, we're more likely to make rash decisions that are going to put us in a worse spot in the long term. I would encourage you in the next 24 hours, pull the last 24 to 36 months, look at the revenue expenses, see the peak, see the valleys, build a baseline based off that valley, and understand what decisions that you would have to make, how you would perform on those stress tests. Just do this for one thing. When you do this for one thing, you're going to understand that constraint and then go after that constraint and try and solve it. Thanks for watching today, and go out. Let's make some more money.